Maybe you are sitting on the edge of your bed, listening to the house settle around you, feeling the sudden, sharp weight of being invisible. You have spent the entire day performing, making sure the people around you know you are present, that you are capable, and that you are contributing your share to the world. But now that the lights are dim and the air is still, the silence feels less like a rest and more like a disappearance. You wonder if, should you stop moving for even a single hour, the world would even notice your absence. It is a hollow, aching kind of exhaustion. You are not tired because of the work you did, but because of the immense, silent labor of keeping yourself visible, relevant, and needed in the eyes of others. The room around you is quiet, just the hum of the cooling floorboards and the slow rhythm of the street lamp, casting long, thin shadows against your curtain. The fabric of your sheets feels cool against your skin, a grounding texture in a day that felt entirely unmoored. Outside, the night has claimed the garden, the trees, and the rooftops, smoothing them into a single, dark shape that requires no attention to exist. There is a profound honesty in that darkness. It does not try to be anything other than what it is. It does not demand to be recognized. You are not broken because you fear being forgotten. You are not failing because you feel the urge to keep checking, to keep producing, and to keep proving your worth. These are not signs of a defect in your soul. They are simply the habits of a heart that was taught long ago that visibility is the only insurance against abandonment. But tonight, we will begin to set that insurance down. You do not have to perform your way into existence tonight. You do not have to fill the space with your achievements, your worries, or your plans just to prove that you are here. There is a strange, beautiful paradox in the wisdom of the Buddha that we can explore together. We often think that we must remain constantly active, constantly glowing like a frantic flame if we are to matter to the world or to ourselves. We believe that if we stop, we will fade into the background and cease to be real. But the deeper truth is that your value is not a light you must maintain through effort. Your value is a deep, quiet current, like the water that moves in the abyss. It exists whether the sun is shining or whether you are wrapped in the absolute dark. The ocean does not stop being an ocean just because the surface is not being watched. This is the doorway to a different kind of peace. When you feel that clawing fear that you are falling behind or becoming invisible, remember that the most vital parts of the living world operate in total silence. They do not hold staff meetings to discuss their importance. They do not check to see if they are being documented. They simply exist. And in their existing, they sustain everything else. Tonight, you have permission to stop managing your reputation with the universe. You do not need to solve the mystery of your future before you close your eyes. You do not need to settle the accounts of your past. Every expectation you have placed upon your own shoulders, every belief that you must be seen to be safe, can be set aside for a little while. This is not about giving up on your life. This is about finding the space beneath the performance where your life is actually being lived. You might notice your mind starting to wander back to the things you need to do tomorrow or the way you wish today had gone. That is fine. Do not be angry with your thoughts. They are just trying to keep you safe in the only way they know how, by keeping you busy, by keeping you like a boat moving across the surface of the sea. You do not have to jump into the boat. You do not have to steer it. You are the deep, dark water beneath it, vast and steady. Let your breath come in slowly, without any effort to change its shape. Let your shoulders lose their upward tension as if you are finally taking off a heavy coat you have been wearing for years. There is nothing to prove here. There is no one to impress in the darkness. You are simply a person resting in the quiet, and that is enough. The world will continue to turn, whether you are managing it or not. The moon will continue to rise whether you have completed your tasks or not. You are not losing your importance by letting go of the tension. You are actually coming home to yourself. You are allowing the noise of the day to fall away until all that remains is the pulse in your throat and the quiet expansion of your ribs. It is a simple, humble thing to just exist. It is the most natural thing in the world to be a living, breathing creature that needs nothing but the air it draws and the rest it receives. As we move forward, we will look at how this fear of disappearing has shaped your days and how it has turned your own quiet moments into a battlefield. But for right now, just focus on the contact points between your body and the bed. Feel the weight of your heels, your calves, your thighs. Feel the way the mattress rises to meet you, holding you completely, requiring nothing in exchange. You do not need to do anything to earn this support. It is provided by the physics of the earth, just as your worth is provided by the very fact of your being. Take another breath, deep and slow. If a thought about tomorrow appears, imagine it as a faint flicker on the surface of a wide, dark lake. You see the light, but it does not disturb the temperature of the water. You are the water. You are the depth. You are the current that moves unseen, patient, and powerful, carrying everything in its path toward the morning. Nothing is required of you but this simple, quiet attention to the breath. You have finally stopped the frantic searching. You have finally decided to land. Stay here in this stillness for a moment longer. The silence is waiting for you, and it has no demands at all. High on the northern ridge, where the clouds often snag, on the jagged granite teeth of the mountain, there lived an old woman named Emmy. Her house was not a temple, but a small, sturdy cabin built from cedar planks that smelled of resin and damp earth. For 40 years, Emmy had been the caretaker of the Great Slope, a vast stretch of wild hillside that overlooked the valley below. Her task was simple in its description, but exhausting in its reality. She was responsible for maintaining the path that wound, from the base of the ridge up to the summit shrine. People from the villages believed that if the path was kept perfectly clear, if not a single loose stone or stray pine needle remained, their prayers at the summit would be answered more quickly. Emmy took this duty into her own hands with a quiet, unrelenting intensity. Every morning, long before the sun had cleared the horizon, she would emerge from her cabin with a heavy wooden rake made of thick bamboo slats. The wood was polished smooth by the friction of thousands of hours of work, its handle worn down by the shape of her palms. She walked the path with a singular focus. She swept away the needles that fell from the ancient firs. She cleared the silt that gathered after a rain. She spent her days ensuring that the ground beneath the feet of others was smooth, predictable, and clean. Emmy believed that if she were to stop, if she were to leave even a small patch of the path untended, the people who walked it would surely stumble. Worse, she feared that if the path became cluttered or wild, she would be seen as a failure. She would become a forgotten relic, a woman whose life had ceased to have a function. One autumn afternoon, the wind began to howl, tearing through the branches with a violence that made the cabin shudder. Leaves, branches, and debris rained down upon the slope. By evening, the path Emmy had spent years perfecting was buried under a thick, chaotic layer of organic refuse. Her hands were raw, her joints ached with a dull, throbbing heat, and her heart felt as frayed as the bristles of her rake. She stood in the center of the debris, trembling, staring at the destruction. She felt a sudden, sharp panic that if she did not clear it all before the dawn, her life's work would be erased, and she would simply vanish into the mountain just as she began to rake with a frantic, desperate energy. A traveler appeared on the ridge. He was an elderly monk with a tattered grey robe and a walking staff of unstripped willow. He did not ask for help, nor did he offer any. He simply walked toward her, his movements slow and fluid, as if he were wading through water. When he reached the spot where Emmy stood, he stopped and leaned on his staff. He watched her for a long time, observing the way her shoulders hunched and the way her eyes scanned the ground with fear. Finally, the monk spoke. His voice was raspy, like dry leaves skittering across stone. He asked her if she had noticed the moon that had risen behind the eastern peak. Emmy did not look up. She kept raking, her breath coming in, jagged, ragged gasps. She told him that she did not have time for the moon. She told him that the path had to be cleared because the villagers were coming in the morning. They would think she was lazy. They would stop coming to the shrine. They would stop needing her. The monk stepped forward and placed his hand on the head of her rake. He didn't pull it away. He just held it in place, forcing her to pause. Emmy felt the tension in her arms reach a snapping point. She wanted to yell at him, to tell him to move out of the way so she could finish her work before the light completely faded. Instead, she looked at his hand. It was weathered, spotted with age, and completely still. He asked her a single question. He asked if the mountain was worried about the leaves. Emmy looked at the steep slope, covered in fallen debris. She looked at the forest that stretched out beyond the path, where the wind had dropped 1,000,000 leaves, none of which she had ever tried to rake. She looked at the monk, who was looking at her with an expression of deep, curious kindness. He asked her what would happen if she left the path exactly as it was for just one night. Emmy felt a sensation of vertigo, as if the ground beneath her feet were tilting. She whispered that if she left the path, she would be no different than the trees. She would just be a person who was not needed. The monk smiled, a slow, thin crease of a smile that didn't judge her fear. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small, heavy object. It was a smooth river stone, dark as obsidian and perfectly round. He held it out to her. He told her that this stone had spent centuries being rolled by the currents of a river, being knocked against other rocks, being shaped by the very thing that threatened to destroy it. It had never tried to clear the riverbed. It had never worried about being forgotten by the stream. It had simply trusted that its form was enough. He placed the stone in Emmy's palm. It was cold, and its weight was grounding. He told her that her need to be the caretaker of the world was a heavy burden to carry, and that perhaps, for tonight, the mountain would be content to be messy. He walked a few paces away toward the shelter of a nearby rocky overhang and sat down in the dirt. He did not look back. He did not tell her to stop. He just sat, a small, dark shape against the vast, grey twilight of the ridge. Emmy stood alone. On the path, the wind had died down, but the air was biting. She looked at the stone in her hand, then at the chaotic mess of the path, then at the distant rising moon that the monk had pointed out. A strange, quiet realization flickered in her mind, like a candle flame fighting against a draft. She realized that she had been holding her breath for years, terrified that if she stopped working, she would simply evaporate. She felt the muscles in her back begin to unravel, a slow, painful process of letting go of the tension that had been her only companion. She did not finish the path. She did not rake another inch. She dropped the rake, the sound of wood hitting the hard ground, echoing off the rocks like a thunderclap. She turned around and walked back to her cabin. She left the debris. She left the work. She left the expectations of the villagers. She closed the cabin door, sat on the floor, and for the first time in 4 decades, she listened to the sound of the mountain wind without feeling the urge to fix the world it had touched. The story does not end with the monk explaining the mystery of the stone. It ends with the stillness of the cabin. It ends with an old woman who realized that the mountain did not require her to be its master. And as you lie here in the quiet of your own room, you might notice that you are not so different from Imi. You have your own path that you feel you must clear, your own debris that you fear will reveal your inadequacy. But the deeper truth of this journey is beginning to emerge from the silence. It is not that you are failing. It is that you are trying to do the work of the wind and the trees, when all you were ever asked to do was live within the world they create. There is a shift happening here in the way your mind is hearing these words. The urgency you brought to the pillow is softening just a little. You are noticing that the world hasn't collapsed because you stopped raking. You are noticing that the weight you were carrying was something you had picked up and something you are finally, tentatively, deciding to put down. Just notice how the breath is moving through your body. Now, it is deeper, isn't it? It is moving without your permission. It is sustaining you. Right now, as you listen, and that is all that is required for this moment to be whole. When Emmy closed the door to her cabin and sat in the quiet dark, she did not suddenly become a person without a purpose. She simply became a person who was no longer fighting the wind. The sound of that heavy wooden rake hitting the dirt was not the sound of a woman giving up on her life. It was the sound of a woman finally refusing to manufacture her own suffering. And right now, as you rest in the quiet of this room, you are being invited to hear that same sound echoing in your own mind. You are being invited to drop the heavy tools you use to prove that you are here, to prove that you matter, and to prove that you are worthy of taking up space in this world. The teachings of the Buddha often circle around a very gentle, very profound observation about human pain. He pointed out that there is the natural discomfort of simply being alive, and then there is the intense, exhausting agony that we create when we refuse to accept that discomfort. We call this the second wound. The first wound is just the weather of a human life. It is the natural quiet that falls over a house at the end of the day. It is the simple, neutral fact that you cannot control what people think of you. It is the feeling of stillness. No immediate tasks asking for your attention. But our minds are so deeply conditioned by fear that we rarely stop at the first wound. When the house gets quiet, the mind whispers that you are being forgotten. When there is no task to complete, the mind insists that you are falling behind. That panicked response is the second wound. It is the frantic urge to run back out into the cold and keep sweeping the path, terrified that if you are not visibly useful, you will simply cease to exist. The suffering you feel tonight is not because you have failed to clear the path. Your suffering is born from the exhausting belief that the path must remain perfectly clear for you to be safe. In Buddhist wisdom, this desperate grip is what we call craving or attachment. Sometimes we misunderstand these words. We think attachment means loving the world too much, and we worry that a spiritual path requires us to become cold, distant, and indifferent to the people we care about. We imagine that to find peace, we must stop feeling altogether. But this is a misunderstanding of the deepest kind. The Buddha was never asking you to become a stone with no heart. He was showing you how to stop treating your own heart like a machine that must constantly produce value to earn its keep. Attachment is not the love you feel for your life. Attachment is the tight, anxious contract you make with the universe, telling yourself that you will only feel secure if everything goes exactly according to your plan. It is the belief that your worth only exists when it is being witnessed, measured, and praised by others. Craving is the hunger for a permanent spotlight in a world that is always turning toward the evening. When we cling to the need to be seen, we trap ourselves on the turbulent surface of the ocean, constantly battered by the waves of other people's opinions, desperately trying to stay afloat in the foam. But beneath that noisy surface, there is a different reality entirely. Think of the dark, smooth river stone the monk placed in Emir's hand. That stone did not earn its shape by fighting the river. It earned its shape by yielding to the current, by resting heavy and quiet in the unseen depths. There are vast, powerful currents moving at the bottom of the sea, miles below the reach of the sun. These deep waters are completely invisible to the world above. No one takes pictures of them, no one praises them, and yet they regulate the temperature of the entire globe. They sustain life on a massive scale, moving in absolute darkness, requiring no applause to be profoundly important. Mindfulness, in its truest sense, is the practice of sinking down into that deep water. It is the gentle ability to notice the frantic thoughts skipping across the surface of your mind and choosing not to paddle after them. You can feel the urge to plan tomorrow, the urge to fix a mistake you made yesterday, the urge to mentally rehearse a conversation so you appear perfect. You can watch those urges crash and break like waves, but you do not have to be the wave. You can let your awareness drop lower, sinking down through the cold, quiet pressure of the water until you reach a place where the storms above no longer disturb you. When we talk about letting go, we are talking about this gentle descent. Letting go is not an act of abandoning your responsibilities. It is not an act of weakness. It is the brave, quiet decision to stop carrying the ocean in your arms and to finally let the ocean carry you. When Emmy dropped her rake, she did not hate the mountain. She finally loved the mountain enough to let it be wild. She finally loved herself enough to stop using her labor as a shield against her own fear. You can care deeply about your life, your family, and your work without gripping them so tightly that your hands bleed. You might notice, even now, how much energy it takes to hold yourself together in the dark. You might notice a subtle clenching in your stomach or a tightness in your jaw, as if you are bracing for an impact that is not actually happening. That tension is the echo of the second wound. It is the physical memory of trying to earn your place in the world. But the world is not asking you for payment tonight. The bed beneath you is holding your weight without asking for a list of your daily achievements. The air in the room is entering your lungs freely without requiring you to prove that you are productive enough to breathe it. This is the beauty of impermanence. We often fear that things change, but impermanence is also the ultimate relief. It means that the mistakes of today are already dissolving into the past. It means that the heavy expectations you carried this morning do not have to survive the night. Every breath you release is a small act of trusting the flow of time. You do not have to hold the sky up. You do not have to maintain the structure of your life through sheer force of will while you sleep. The universe has been expanding and turning for billions of years without your anxious supervision, and it will continue to hold everything together perfectly well while you rest. True compassion begins right here, in the darkest, quietest hours of the night. It is the willingness to look at the tired, frightened parts of your own mind and offer them a soft place to land. You do not need to punish yourself for overthinking. You do not need to be angry with yourself for feeling anxious. Your mind was only trying to protect you. It thought that by staying vigilant, by checking every detail, by making sure everyone was happy, it could keep you safe from the pain of being forgotten. Just recognize that effort. See how hard your mind has worked for you. And then, very gently, let it know that the shift is over. You are allowed to exist in the unseen spaces. You are allowed to be entirely useless for the next few hours. There is a deep, profound healing in allowing yourself to be unnecessary. It strips away the false identity of the performer and leaves only the pure, quiet presence of the living being. You are the silent current. You are the heavy stone resting on the riverbed. You are the space where the wind passes through, without resistance. In a little while, we will take this understanding and move it softly into your own physical experience. We will practice sinking beneath the waves together, without forcing anything at all. But for now, just let these ideas settle into the quiet room. Let the words drift over you like the slow, rhythmic sound of water against a deep hull. There is nothing you need to figure out right now. There is no quiz on this wisdom. The only thing happening here is the gradual, completely safe process of unclenching your hands. Notice how the darkness of the room is not empty, but full of a quiet, supportive presence. It is the presence of your own awareness, resting softly in the center of your life. You do not have to shine a light on it. You do not have to show it to anyone. It is enough that you are here, breathing in and breathing out, letting the weight of the day slip into the unseen depths. Now that you have heard the story of Emmy and the mountain path, you may be starting to feel a subtle shift in the room. The air feels a little lighter, and the weight in your own shoulders might be easing just a fraction. This is the moment for us to turn this wisdom inward, not to analyze it or to memorize it, but to simply experience it as a feeling in your own body. If it feels right to you, you might begin by taking a slow, natural breath. You do not need to change the depth of your breath. Just notice it. Notice the way the cool air enters your nostrils and the way the warm air leaves your lips. As you continue to breathe, allow your attention to settle on the places where your body meets the bed. Feel the points of contact, your heels, the back of your calves, your thighs, your shoulders, the back of your head. These are your anchors. Like the heavy river stone the monk gave to Imi, these points of contact are solid, steady, and entirely indifferent to the frantic activity of your mind. They do not need to perform. They do not need to be seen. They are simply holding you, right here, in the safety of this moment. You may have noticed that your mind is still busy. That is perfectly fine. Your mind has been a dedicated worker for a very long time, and it does not know how to stop immediately. It might be pulling up a thought about a project you have to finish. a conversation you had that left you feeling exposed, or a worry about whether you are doing enough with your life. Do not try to push these thoughts away. Do not try to silence them. That would only be another form of raking the path, another form of trying to clear the ground so you can feel safe. Instead, simply acknowledge them. You can name them if you wish. You might silently say, "This is the fear of being forgotten. This is the need to be productive." Give these thoughts a name, and then, very gently, imagine that you are holding them in your hands. Do not hold them tightly. Hold them as you would hold a delicate piece of sea glass you found on the shore. You are not going to keep them. You are not going to display them. You are simply observing them for a heartbeat, seeing them clearly. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, you are going to place them into the deep, dark water beneath you. Imagine that beneath the bed, there is no floor but a vast, calm, and incredibly deep ocean. This is the same deep-sea current we talked about earlier. It is a place where the water is dark, quiet, and under enough pressure to be utterly still. Take that thought, that worry, that feeling of needing to be visible, and imagine placing it into the surface of that deep water. Watch as it slowly sinks, not because you are throwing it away in anger, but because you are letting it return to the depths, where things can be dissolved by time and silence. See the thought drift down. It gets smaller as it descends. It is no longer a command that you have to obey. It is no longer a definition of who you are. It is just an object moving through the water on its way to the bottom of the world. Notice how your mind feels now. Does the pressure in your chest feel a little different? Perhaps the knot in your stomach has softened its grip. You are doing this work perfectly well. Simply by being willing to observe it, there is no need for a breakthrough tonight. There is no need for a massive transformation. Even a tiny, temporary release is enough. If you find that the thoughts keep coming back, imagine that they are like the falling leaves on Emma's path. You do not have to rake them. You do not have to clear them. You can simply stand in the middle of the debris and realize that the path still exists beneath the leaves. You are still you, underneath the noise. You are the one who is noticing the leaves. You are the one who is resting in the quiet dark. You do not have to move the debris to be real. You do not have to tidy your inner world to be worthy of rest. Sometimes we feel that if we stop thinking, we will disappear. We fear that the silence is an empty, hollow place where we might lose ourselves. But the opposite is true. The silence is the only place where you can truly find yourself. When the noise of the day dies down and the urge to perform is put to rest, what is left is not nothing. What is left is you. It is the steady, quiet, and completely real presence of your own life. It is the part of you that does not change when the circumstances of your day change. If it feels right, place a hand gently over your heart. Feel the warmth of your palm against your skin. You are here. You are breathing. You are entirely safe. The world is not asking you to solve it right now. The problems you are facing are not going to run away if you take a night off from thinking about them. They will still be there tomorrow, but you will be meeting them with a much softer, much steadier mind. Just sit with this realization for a few minutes. Imagine your attention is a small, glowing lantern. Move that lantern away from the chaotic surface of the water, where the waves are crashing and the wind is blowing. Move the lantern down, deep into the calm, dark, and pressure-free depths of the ocean. See the soft, bioluminescent light of your own awareness shining in the dark. It is not trying to illuminate everything. It is just shining, simply because That is its nature. It requires no effort. It demands no recognition. It is completely, perfectly enough. You might notice that the rhythm of your breathing is becoming a little slower, a little more rhythmic, like the steady pulse of the tide. Let your body mirror that rhythm. With every exhale, imagine you are sinking a little deeper into the mattress. Imagine you are opening just a little more to the stillness of the room. There is nothing to hold on to. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to prove. You have spent so long trying to keep your light visible that you have forgotten how beautiful it is to rest in the dark. But the dark is where the depth is. The dark is where the current moves. The dark is where you are finally allowed to be unneeded, invisible, and at peace. Stay here in this practice for as long as you like. There is no hurry. The night is long, and it is entirely yours. You are exactly where you need to be, and you are doing exactly what is required, which is nothing at all. You are simply breathing, and that is a profound and noble thing. Years later, in the same mountain range, there lived a master shadow weaver named Kale. She was renowned in all the surrounding towns for her tapestries, which were said to be woven from the very colors of twilight and dawn. People traveled for days just to stand before her looms, marveling at the intricate, vibrant threads that seemed to glow. Even in the dim light of her workshop, Kale was a woman driven by a fierce, singular need to be seen. Every thread she spun, every knot she tied, was a plea for recognition. She believed that as long as she created beauty that the world admired, she was safe. She believed that her visibility was the bridge that kept her from falling into the abyss of insignificance. She worked from the earliest grey of the morning until the final star winked out, her hands constantly moving, her mind constantly planning the next pattern, the next masterpiece. She grew frail as the seasons passed, her eyes dimming, her fingers stiffening with the ache of decades of labor. Yet she could not stop. She feared that if she sat for even a day without producing something beautiful, the world would move on. She feared that if she were not at her loom, the appreciation of the villagers would vanish, and with it her own sense of reality. She became a prisoner of her own talent, tethered to the bright, visible world of her art, terrified of the shadows she once loved. One winter, when the mountain air grew so cold that the ink in the inkwells froze, Kale fell ill. Her strength failed her completely, and for the first time in her life, she could not reach her looms. She spent her days huddled in a small, dark alcove at the back of her shop, listening to the wind rattle the shutters. She felt a profound, paralyzing sense of failure. She assumed that without her new works, the shop would be empty. The villagers would forget her, and she would simply fade away, a ghost in her own home. She sat in the dark weeping, feeling the crushing weight of her own perceived worthlessness. As she lay in the darkness, she heard a soft, rhythmic clicking sound. It was the sound of a loom, but not from the main workshop. It was coming from the shadows of the alcove where she sat. She peered into the gloom and saw a young apprentice, a girl she had barely noticed during the busy years of her fame. The girl was working on a small, dark frame, weaving threads that were black charcoal and deep indigo. They were not bright, eye-catching colors. They were the shades of the night. Kale watched, her breath hitched in her throat, as the apprentice worked with a patience that Kale had never possessed. The girl was not looking for approval. She was not checking the doorway to see if customers were arriving. She was simply lost in the movement of the shuttle, in the tension of the threads. Kale noticed that the apprentice was not weaving a pattern for the world to see. She was mending the base, the structure, the very threads that held the weight of the entire tapestry, which Kale had always neglected in her rush to create the visible beauty on the surface. Kale whispered to her, asking why she spent her time on such dark, hidden work. The apprentice stopped her hands, but did not look up. She told Kale that the bright patterns everyone loved were only possible because someone was tending to the hidden threads beneath. She explained that she was not making something for the world to see, but she was ensuring that the whole piece remained intact. She spoke of how, in the dark, she felt a different kind of connection to the loom, a connection that did not depend on whether she was being watched. In that quiet moment, Kale felt the long-held tension of her entire life begin to crack. She realized that for her whole existence, she had been like a person, trying to keep the surface of a pond bright with reflected sunlight, never realizing that the water itself needed no light. To be deep and vital, she had spent her life weaving for the approval of others, and in doing so, she had treated her own soul like an ornament, something to be displayed, something to be traded for validation. She saw, with a clarity that stung like the mountain frost, that the apprentice's work in the shadows was the very thing that had held her own world together all these years, even as she had obsessed over the bright surface details. Kale did not suddenly become a weaver of shadows. She did not magically lose her desire for recognition, but she did something she had never done before. She reached out, her trembling hand, finding the frame the apprentice was working on. She did not take the work from her. She simply rested, her hand there, feeling the steady, rhythmic vibration of the loom. She took a long, slow breath, and for the first time in years, she did not look at the clock. She did not think about the next tapestry. She just felt the reality of the moment, the cold air, the sound of the girl's work, and the feeling of her own heart beating against her ribs. It was a small, subtle transformation. Kale still felt the pull of her old fears. She still worried about her reputation, but she stopped reacting to that fear as if it were a physical assault. When the urge to return to her bright looms clawed at her, she chose to stay in the alcove for a few more minutes. She chose to sit with the fear rather than running from it. She forgave herself for being tired, for being old, and for having lived a life defined by the eyes of others. And she did so without needing to undo the past. She simply accepted it as part of her journey. The apprentice turned to her, not with praise or judgment, but with a quiet, knowing look. She handed Kale a single, dark thread. Kale took it. She felt the weight of it. It was just a thread, not a masterpiece, not a source of fame. Yet, in that moment, it felt more significant than any gold-spun pattern she had ever woven. It was a thread of her own life, raw, unadorned, and existing entirely for itself. Kale closed her eyes and let the thread fall into her lap. She was not a master weaver anymore. She was just a woman, sitting in the dark, listening to the loom. She realized that she was not being forgotten by the world, because she was finally remembering herself. She realized that she had been spending her life building a pedestal for her ego, and that the ground beneath it had been solid all along, whether she was standing on it or not. There is a lesson here, dear friend, that goes deeper than the first story. We are not just afraid of being forgotten. We are afraid of what we will find if we stop being the person we show to the world. We fear that the person underneath is somehow hollow, or messy, or entirely invisible. But when Kale sat in the dark and felt the thread in her lap, she discovered the opposite. She found that the reality of her being was not dependent on the praise of others. It was inherent. It was hers. You might be thinking that this is a lovely story, but that your own life is not a workshop, and your own fears are far more pressing than those of an old weaver. But the mechanism is exactly the same. The urge to perform, the need to keep your reputation bright, the fear of the dark. These are the looms you have been working at for years. And tonight, you are being invited to step away from your looms. You are being invited to sit in the dark, not as a failure, but as a person who is finally done with the exhausting labor of being someone else's mirror. Notice how your breath is moving now as you listen to this. Notice how your body is resting against the mattress. You are not weaving anything right now. You are not producing anything. You are not being judged by anyone. And yet, you are still here. You are still breathing. Your heart is still beating. You are, in every way that truly matters, completely whole, even when no one is watching. This is the deeper transformation we are walking toward. It is the shift from a life of constant production to a life of quiet presence. You are not losing your value by letting go. You are reclaiming the ownership of your own existence. You are learning to exist for yourself, in the quiet, in the dark, in the spaces where the world is not asking anything of you at all. Just stay with that feeling for a moment. Feel the weight of your own existence, independent of any task, independent of any opinion, independent of any need to be seen. You are enough exactly as you are, sitting here in the quiet of this night. The work that Kale did in the shadows and the path that Emmy finally left to the wild wind. These are not stories about finding a new way to succeed. They are stories about discovering why we are so terrified of failing. When you lie in the quiet of your room, feeling the hum of your own thoughts, you are often navigating a vast internal landscape built on the assumption that you are the architect of your own safety. We believe that if we can just account for every variable, if we can just anticipate every judgment, and if we can just fix every perceived flaw, we will finally be allowed to stop defending our existence. But this is the fundamental knot that keeps the mind restless. We treat our lives like a fragile piece of weaving that will unravel the moment we look away. Consider the nature of the loom. If you are constantly adjusting the tension, obsessing over every thread, and trying to pull the fabric into a shape that pleases the world, you are not really weaving. You are struggling, and in that struggle, the thread often snaps. We do this to ourselves with such subtle cruelty. When we feel the natural, inevitable pain of being human, the sting of a sharp word, the ache of a missed opportunity, or the quiet loneliness of a Sunday evening, we rarely stop there. We immediately begin to layer our own interpretations on top of the event. We call it evidence of our inadequacy. We use the pain as a reason to critique our performance. We turn the raw, neutral experience of being alive into a narrative of why we are lacking. This is the extra suffering. The first pain is the rain that falls on the mountain. It is a natural part of the climate of a human life. It is cool, it is wet, and it can be uncomfortable. But the second pain, the one that keeps you awake at night, is like trying to build a roof over the entire mountain range just so you can stay dry. It is an impossible project. It requires a level of control that no human being possesses. And yet, we berate ourselves every time a drop of rain touches our skin. We treat that dampness as a failure. We think that if we were only wiser, stronger, or more capable, we would be perfectly dry all the time. The Buddhist insight into this mechanism is one of profound, radical kindness. It does not ask you to stop the rain. It does not ask you to become waterproof. It asks you to stop punishing yourself for being caught in a storm. The suffering you experience is not a sign that you are doing your life wrong. It is a sign that you are treating your existence as a performance that must be flawless to be valid. You are trying to weave a tapestry that satisfies an audience that is not even watching, while ignoring the fact that you are the one holding the shuttle and you are the one who is exhausted. This habit of control is a heavy garment you have worn for so long that you have forgotten it is not your skin. You use it to navigate the future. You rehearse conversations. You play out worst-case scenarios. And you mentally prepare for conflicts that have not yet occurred. You do this because your mind has convinced you that if you are prepared, you are safe. But preparation is not the same as peace. Preparation is just a form of mental wrestling. You are exhausting your own resources by fighting phantom opponents. When you finally reach the moments you have spent hours rehearsing, you are already too tired to actually be present in them. The fear of uncertainty is the engine that drives this constant inner labor. We crave the illusion of a finished, stable state. We want to be able to say that we have arrived, that we are settled, and that we no longer have to worry about the shifting nature of things. But life, by its very design, is a flowing, changing, and unpredictable current. It is not a museum where things are preserved behind glass. It is a garden that is always growing, dying, and changing, trying to pin down your life into a permanent, secure shape is like trying to hold a river in a bucket. The harder you grip the handle, the more the water splashes out. Self-judgment is the most insidious part of this mechanism. We think that if we are hard on ourselves, we will improve. We think that if we feel enough shame for our mistakes, we will prevent ourselves from making them again. But shame is not a teacher. Shame is a prison. It does not help you see the situation more clearly. It makes you narrow your vision until all you can see is your own perceived defect. It blinds you to the reality of the mountain, the reality of the sky, and the reality of your own inherent capacity to be at peace. When we talk about letting go, we are not talking about abandoning your values or your goals. We are talking about changing the angle of your grip. Imagine you are holding a piece of silk thread. If you hold it with a white-knuckled grip, you will only fray the fibers. You will make the thread brittle and weak. But if you hold it with a light, steady touch, you can guide it. You can weave with it, and you can create something beautiful without destroying the very material you are using. This is the difference between a life lived in resistance and a life lived in awareness. Awareness is the space that allows you to see the thread without pulling on it. It is the ability to recognize that you are feeling anxious or that you are feeling the urge to control the situation and to greet that feeling with curiosity rather than condemnation. You can see the urge to perform and say to yourself, "Oh, there is that old desire to be seen. I see you, and you are not the one in charge tonight." This is not about suppressing the feeling. It is about removing the fuel. When you stop fighting the feeling, when you stop adding your own judgment to the fact that you are feeling it, the feeling loses its power to command you. It becomes just another sensation, like the cool air on your skin or the sound of the wind outside. Peace is not the end of the difficulty. Peace is the end of the war with the difficulty. It is the transition from a life of constant battle to a life of simple, honest observation. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be unsure. You are allowed to not have the answers for what tomorrow might hold. These are not character flaws. They are the honest reactions of a sensitive heart living in a complex world. The struggle ends when you stop trying to be the judge of your own experience. You have been carrying the weight of your own approval for a long time. You have been waiting for a signal from the world that you are doing enough, that you are being enough, and that your path is clear enough. But the signal is not coming from the outside. The signal is the quiet, steady rhythm of your own breath. It is the feeling of your weight pressing down into the bed. It is the awareness that you are here, that you are alive, and that you are allowed to rest without justifying your right to exist. Everything you have been trying to solve, everything you have been trying to fix is just a way to hold on to the illusion that you are in control. But you are not in control of the tide, and you are not in control of the wind. You are, however, the one who can choose to sit by the window and watch. You are the one who can choose to stop weaving in the dark. You are the one who can decide that, for tonight, you are finished with the labor of proving your worth. This is not a defeat. It is the ultimate victory of the heart. It is the moment you finally stop being the servant of your own anxiety and become the witness of your own life. The silence in the room is not empty. It is filled with the presence of your own awareness. It is a soft, supportive, and completely neutral presence. It does not ask you to change. It does not ask you to succeed. It only asks that you notice. It asks that you notice the way the breath expands your lungs. It asks that you notice the way the thoughts come and go like clouds. It asks that you notice that, even when you feel heavy, there is a part of you that is lighter than the air. You have done enough for today. The mountain path will still be there tomorrow. But you do not have to clear it tonight. The looms will still be waiting. But you do not have to weave tonight. The world will keep turning. Whether you are managing it or not, you are safe to let go of the burden. You are safe to let go of the tension. You are safe to drift into the quiet, dark, and endless depth of your own peace. There is no one to impress here. There is only you, resting in the soft, dark sanctuary of your own being. Let the thoughts fall away like leaves. Let the resistance dissolve like salt in the deep, vast ocean. You are finally, completely home. The profound insight of the mountain ridge and the dark weaver's alcove does not stay trapped in the stories of long ago. It finds its way into the quiet, cluttered spaces of your own modern days. Think of the moments when you are standing in line or waiting for a message to appear on your screen, and you feel that familiar, sharp pull of anxiety in your chest. That is the moment you have been raking the path, worried that the world might change its mind about you. In that second, you can choose to simply watch the pulse in your wrist instead of checking the screen. You can let the silence of the wait be what it is, a small island of time where you are not required to be productive, liked, or efficient. You are practicing the art of not raking the wind. When you lie awake in the middle of the night, your mind replaying a mistake from years past or calculating the risks of tomorrow, you are trying to use your thoughts as a lantern to fix the dark. But the light you need is not found in the replaying of memories. It is found in the physical reality of the bed beneath you. Next time the mind starts its familiar, frantic loop, try to notice the texture of the fabric against your skin. Feel the weight of your own body. These things are real, while the mistake and the future fear are just shadows dancing on the wall. You do not have to finish the argument with yourself. You do not have to solve the problem of your worthiness at 3 a.m. You can simply turn your attention to the rhythm of your own breath, which is the only thing that actually knows how to keep you alive without needing your supervision. We often feel that if we are not constantly moving, not constantly preparing for the next hurdle, we are falling behind. We look at others and see their polished surfaces, forgetting that everyone is navigating their own hidden mountain slope. You might feel a sting of envy or a pang of insecurity, thinking that you are the only one who struggles. But that heavy feeling in your chest is a universal language spoken by everyone who is trying to carry their life in their arms. When you feel that tightness, you can offer yourself a small gesture of mercy. You can whisper that it is okay to be tired. You can decide that your value does not fluctuate with the quality of your output or the feedback of your peers. Your worth is like the mountain itself, solid and unmoving, even when the clouds of judgment are obscuring the view. Maybe you are used to pretending that you are okay when you are actually feeling drained. You wear your smile like a thin, stiff garment, fearing that if you take it off, people will see your exhaustion and judge you for it. But there is a great, quiet strength in letting that mask slip, if only for a moment. In the privacy of your own heart, you can look at your own fatigue and say that it is a valid response to a human life. You do not need to apologize for being human. You do not need to prove that you are constantly optimistic. Compassion for yourself is not a weakness you can afford to skip. It is the very foundation that allows you to show up for others without depleting your own well. Even the simple act of choosing to pause before you react is a masterclass in this wisdom. When someone speaks to you in a way that triggers your need for defense, you might feel that surge of adrenaline, the urge to strike back or to explain yourself until you are heard. But in that split second, you can choose to just breathe. You can choose to feel the heat of the emotion without needing to act on it immediately. You can let that energy cycle through you, like the wind moving through the fir trees, without requiring the wind to change its direction. You are not suppressing your feelings. You are simply refusing to let the emotion dictate your next move. You are deciding that you are the master of your own house, not the guest who just walked in through the door. You might have a habit of checking your phone for reassurance, looking for a sign that you are remembered or valued. When that impulse arises, try to pause. Just notice the physical sensation of the urge. Notice the specific tightness in your hands, the slight speed of your heartbeat. Name it. Say, this is the hunger for a sign. See how that hunger feels, independent of whether you get the notification or not. By just observing the hunger, you remove its power to control you. You are reclaiming the territory of your own mind. You are proving to yourself that you can exist in the uncertainty of a silent phone without feeling as though you are vanishing. There is a deep, quiet discipline in knowing when to put down your tools. You might have been working so hard to secure your future, to please your family, or to reach a goal that you have forgotten how to rest without feeling guilty. That guilt is the shadow of the rake. It is the belief that you must be doing something to justify your place in the world. But you have already earned your place just by being here. The guilt is a ghost, a remnant of a story you told yourself long ago. Every time you consciously choose to sit and do nothing, every time you let yourself breathe without planning, you are untying a knot in the weave of your life. You are deciding that you are not a product to be sold, but a human being to be experienced. You do not need to become a hermit on a mountain to practice this. You do not need to change your career or move to a quiet valley. The path is right where your feet are. It is in the way you wash the dishes, the way you walk to your car, the way you listen to the person next to you. It is in the small, seemingly mundane choices to prioritize your own inner peace over the need to be right. When you find yourself getting caught in the loop of trying to fix the self through shame, just stop. Take a breath. Remind yourself that the person you are today is doing the best they can with the history they have. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy of your own kindness. This way of living is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about becoming more present. When you are not so busy managing your image or defending your ego, you have so much more energy to actually see the world. You can appreciate the way the light hits the floor in the morning. You can listen to the tone of a voice instead of analyzing the words for hidden judgment. You can experience the warmth of a cup of tea without needing to document it or share it with anyone else. You are moving from a life of performance to a life of participation. You might notice that the more you let go, the more capable you actually become. When you are not spending all your energy trying to control the wind, you have the strength to sail the ship. When you are not busy raking the entire mountain, you can walk the path with a light and steady step. The anxiety that once felt like a constant weight starts to become like the distant rumble of thunder. You hear it, you recognize it, but you know it is not in the room with you. You know that you are safe. There is no destination you are trying to reach with this work. You are already at the destination. The peace you are searching for is the space behind the thoughts, the ground beneath the feet, the breath that never stops. Every time you consciously choose not to follow a thought, you are coming home to that space. Every time you choose to sit with your uncomfortable feelings without trying to kill them, you are expanding that space. It is a slow, quiet, and deeply personal unfolding. It is the work of a lifetime, and yet it is the work of a single breath. You have all the tools you need right now. You have the awareness that can see the thought. You have the heart that can feel the ache. You have the body that can rest in the dark. The teaching is not a heavy set of rules you must follow to get a reward. It is a gentle invitation to stop doing the work that was never yours to do. It is the permission to finally, truly let go. As you settle into this realization, just observe how much easier it is to be in your own company. You are a much kinder host than you realize. You are a much more capable guide than you ever believed. The path is clear, and the mountain is exactly where it needs to be, waiting for you to walk it without the rake, without the fear, and without the need to be anything other than exactly who you are. The work of the weaver is finished for this night. The looms in the back of the shop are quiet, and the threads, whether bright or shadowed, are resting in the stillness of the dark. You can feel that same stillness moving through your own limbs now. As you lie here, notice how the tension in your hands is finally dissolving, like a coil of thread being unwound and laid upon the floor. You do not need to hold on to the shuttle anymore. You do not need to guide the path of the pattern. The fabric of your life is being woven by the deep, natural currents of time, and you are free to simply be the space where that weaving occurs. Allow your breathing to become even slower, even deeper. Each inhale is a gentle movement, bringing you closer to the center of your own quiet alcove. Each exhale is a release, a letting go of the need to be seen, a surrender of the effort to be perfect. You are sinking deeper into the soft, supportive dark. It is not an empty space. It is a full, vibrant, and incredibly peaceful space where you are finally allowed to be unneeded. There is no one in the world who requires your vigilance right now. The mountains will stand, the rivers will flow, the stars will turn in their slow, silent orbits, and they do not need your supervision to do so. Your mind, which has been such a tireless worker, is beginning to mirror the quiet of the room. The thoughts that were once insistent, pulling at your attention like bright, flickering threads, are now drifting into the deep, indigo water beneath the floor. They are becoming dim and distant. You do not have to catch them. You do not have to sort them. You can just watch them sink deeper and deeper until they disappear into the silent bedrock of the sea. There is such profound relief in knowing that you are not the voice that speaks in your head. You are the vast open sky that allows the voice to come and go. Feel the heaviness in your body. Your feet are resting, heavy and warm. Your legs are letting go of the day's travel. Your stomach is soft, rising and falling with the gentle tide of your breath. Your shoulders, which have carried the weight of your expectations for so long, are finally dropping away from your ears. Imagine the muscles of your face smoothing out, as if a master weaver were gently pulling the wrinkles from a delicate piece of silk. You are becoming a vessel of stillness. You are a stone resting on the riverbed, perfectly content to be held by the current, perfectly happy to be hidden in the depths where the sun does not reach. You have learned that the struggle to be seen was only a way to hide from the fear of being small. But now you see that being small is exactly what allows you to be free. The deep sea currents do not need a name. The mountain shadows do not need a spotlight. They simply are, and in their simple existence, they are entirely whole. You are discovering that same wholeness in yourself tonight. You are enough without the approval of the world. You are enough without the success of your plans. You are enough simply because you are here, breathing, alive, and resting in the presence of your own awareness. The air around you is cool and soft, like the mountain air at the edge of the world. Let it hold you. Let the darkness wrap around you, like a heavy indigo tapestry that has no beginning and no end. There is no tomorrow asking for your labor yet. There is no past asking for your explanation. There is only this room, this breath, and the slow, rhythmic beating of your own heart, which has been with you since the first day and will be with you until the last. It is a steady, reliable rhythm, a drumbeat in the dark, guiding you toward the deepest rest you have known in years. You might feel the urge to check the door, or to prepare a list for the morning, or to worry about a detail you forgot. If that urge arises, just smile at it, see it for what it is, a small, tired habit that no longer has any authority over you. You can give that habit permission to sleep too. Tell it that it has done a good job, that it was only trying to protect you, and that it is finally allowed to close its eyes and let go of the burden. When the thought fades, notice the space it leaves behind. It is a wide, open space, clean and silent, waiting for you to occupy it with your rest. The night is a sanctuary. It is a place where the ego can uncoil and the soul can expand. You are not a performer tonight. You are not a weaver. You are a guest of the universe, and everything here is provided for you without cost. The gravity that holds you to the earth is a gift. The air that fills your lungs is a gift. The silence that fills the room is a gift. You do not have to justify your life to receive these things. They are yours by birth, by existence, by the very nature of being alive. There is a sense of returning home, not to a place, but to a feeling. It is the feeling of coming back to yourself after a long and tiring journey. You have spent so much time on the mountain path, so much time in the workshop, so much time trying to fix what was never broken. But now, you are sitting in the alcove. You are watching the dark. You are realizing that you have been home all along. You never left. You only got distracted by the noise, the need, and the fear. Now, let the last remnants of the day dissolve. Imagine the bright, distracting colors of your ego fading into the soft, deep charcoal of the night. You are becoming part of the landscape. You are becoming part of the quiet mountain. You are becoming part of the stillness that exists between the stars. The world is safe, the night is deep, and you are completely, irrevocably allowed to sleep. There is nothing left for you to solve. Everything you need to be is already present in your next breath. Let the breath come naturally, slow and deep. Let it carry you down, further into the warm, safe water, further into the dark, comforting embrace of the earth. You are drifting now into the place where language ends and peace begins. You are becoming the silence that listens to the wind. You are becoming the stone that rests on the riverbed. You are becoming the space where the night finally breathes. And if the peace you were so desperately weaving with your own hands was always waiting for you to simply put the shuttle down, what is it that keeps your fingers from finally letting go?